The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. It fell in silver sheets over the city, washing away the stench of gunpowder and sin, but not the whispers. A black car pulled up the steep hill leading to the Rossi mansion, its headlights cutting through the mist. Inside, a young woman sat still, her fingers gripping a small leather bag, her only possession. Her name, at least in this country, was Elena Moretti, but the passport in her pocket was fake, and the scar hidden beneath her ribs burned whenever she breathed too deeply. A reminder that Elena Moretti didn't exist. She was Clara Vance, the nurse who had seen too much, the woman the world believed dead. The mansion loomed ahead like something from another life. Massive iron gates, black stone walls, vines crawling up its edges. It was the kind of place where silence had weight, where every sound echoed like a warning. When the car stopped, the driver, a thick-built man in a dark suit, opened her door. "Signora Moretti," he said with a faint accent, "welcome to Villa Rossi. The boss doesn't like lateness." Elena nodded. Her throat was dry. She wasn't supposed to end up here. She had only wanted a quiet life, a job under a false name, something far from hospitals, sirens, and blood. But the agency had assigned her to this mansion, one belonging to Damian Rossi, a name whispered like a prayer and a threat in the same breath. They said he ruled half the city's underworld. They said he killed his enemies without ever raising his voice. They said no one looked into his eyes and stayed the same. She didn't plan to look into them. She only planned to clean, to stay invisible, to survive. The heavy wooden doors creaked open. A tall, older housekeeper greeted her, Lucia, with lines of worry etched into her face. "You're the new maid?" Lucia's tone was clipped. "Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't touch anything in the East Wing. And if you see Mr. Rossi, bow your head and leave the room immediately. Understood?" Elena nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Lucia gave her a sharp look. "Good. This is not a normal house. Keep your eyes down, and you'll live longer." The words weren't metaphorical. Elena could feel it. Something off in the air. The walls seemed to breathe with secrets. Cameras linked in the corners, and somewhere, faintly, she could hear classical music playing. Slow, deliberate, haunting. That night, she unpacked in a small attic room overlooking the courtyard. The rain tapped against the window as she stood staring at the reflection of her own face. Tired, pale, unfamiliar. Her hands trembled when she lifted her shirt slightly, tracing the scar below her ribs. She could still hear the echo of that night. The gunshot, the scream, the blood on the tile floor of the hospital basement. She had seen rows of bodies with missing organs, doctors laughing as they filled crates, and then the muzzle flash, the pain, the silence. Someone had dragged her body into the corridor, assuming she was dead, but she had crawled away and vanished. Now she was here, inside the home of a man whose name was tied to power, crime, and maybe, unknowingly, to the same people who wanted her gone. The first time she saw Damian Rossi, she wasn't supposed to. She had been polishing the grand piano in the main hall when she heard footsteps, slow, precise, and echoing against the marble floor. When she looked up, he was already there. A tall man in a black suit, collar open, no tie. His sleeves rolled up to reveal veins and scars, a contrast to his otherwise immaculate presence. His face was unreadable, sharp jawline, eyes like calm storms. He looked at her, not with curiosity, not even suspicion, but like a man who was always assessing. The air changed. "Who are you?" he asked softly. His voice was low, not loud, but every syllable carried command. Elena lowered her gaze instantly. "Elena, sir, the new maid." He said nothing for a moment. She could hear the faint tick of his wristwatch. Then, without warning, he stepped closer. She felt his presence before she saw him, the faint scent of tobacco and leather, the heat radiating off him. "You're shaking," he murmured. "Are you afraid of me?" She swallowed. "No, sir, just nervous." He leaned slightly, enough for her to see his reflection in the polished piano. "You should be," he said quietly. Then, with that same terrifying calm, he turned and walked away. Her knees nearly gave out when he disappeared into the corridor. For the rest of the week, she saw him only in passing, a shadow on the stairs, a glimpse near the window as he spoke to men in suits, but she could feel him. His silence followed her like a shadow, and sometimes, when she looked up suddenly, she'd find his eyes already on on her. Not cruel, not kind, just searching. Lucia once whispered, "The boss never looks twice at anyone. If he's watching you, pray it's not for the wrong reason." But Elena wasn't praying anymore. She was surviving. Until one night, the night the silence broke. It was close to midnight. Elena was in the library, dusting shelves that no one had touched in years. The rain outside was relentless again, hammering against the glass walls. She heard something, a crash, then a low groan. Following the sound, she found Damien in the corridor, leaning against the wall, blood running down his arm. His shirt was torn, his expression unreadable. "Sir," she started, freezing in place. "Don't come closer," he ordered, voice calm but weak. She hesitated only for a second before grabbing the first aid kit from the wall cabinet. "I used to be a nurse," she said softly, kneeling before him. "Please, let me help." His eyes narrowed. "A maid who knows medicine?" She froze, realizing her mistake. "I take care of my grandmother," she lied. He stared at her for a long, heavy moment, then allowed her to clean the wound. Her fingers brushed his skin, and for a second, the world went still. Up close, he didn't look like a monster. He looked human, tired, haunted. And when he finally spoke again, his voice was quieter. "You don't belong here," he murmured. "Neither do you," she replied before she stopped. His lips were faintest ghost of a smile. Then he stood, buttoned his shirt, and said, "Be careful what you say, Elena. In this house, words can get you killed." That night, she couldn't sleep. Her mind kept replaying the way he looked at her, like he could see through every lie he had ever told. She thought she had hidden her path well, but Damien Rossi had eyes that find truth in shadow, and deep down she knew the man who might destroy her was also the only one who could hurt her. The next few days passed in uneasy quiet. The mansion felt colder, heavier, as if the walls themselves were watching her. Every time Elena walked down the corridors, she sensed eyes on her, not just from the guards, but from him. Damien Rossi had become an invisible presence. He was never where she expected, yet always near. His shadow stretched across her days like the ticking of a hidden clock. That morning, she was scrubbing the marble floor in the East Hall when two men in black suits entered, Damien's men. She had seen them before. One was Marco, the man who drove her here. The other, Silvio, cold-faced and sharp-eyed. They stopped near her. Marco muttered something in Italian, and Silvio frowned, looking at a folder in his hand. Then Silvio said, "Boss wants a word with you. Now." Elena froze. Her fingers tightened around the cleaning cloth. "With me?" "Yes," Marco replied. "Don't make him wait." The air in Damien's office was different, thicker, scented with leather, rain, and smoke. He sat behind a mahogany desk, sleeves rolled up again, a glass of whiskey untouched beside him. A faint scar cut across his left wrist, a story she'd never dare ask about. When she entered, he didn't speak at first. He just stared, silent, calculating, as the rain pounded on the windows behind him. Finally, he said, "Sit." She did, her heart beat loud enough to drown the rain. He opened the file before him. "Your name," he began, "is Elena Moretti." Her stomach twisted. "Yes, sir." He tilted his head, eyes narrowing slightly. "No records, no birth certificate, no family in Italy. The agency says you came from Florence, yet no one there's ever heard of you." Her pulse quickened. "There must be a mistake." He cut her off quietly. "I don't believe in mistakes." Silence. The room felt smaller. Then, without warning, he stood and came around the desk. He leaned against its edge, close enough that she could see the tiny flecks of gold in his eyes. "Who are you really?" he asked softly. She forced herself to breathe. "I told you." He reached out, grabbed her chin lightly, his touch cold but not cruel. "Look at me when you lie." Her heart slammed against her ribs. "I'm not lying." "Then tell me," he said, voice like a whisper of steel. "Why you flinched when I mentioned hospitals yesterday?" Her lips parted, no words came. He watched her for a long, suffocating second. Then he released her face, his expression unreadable. "You have secrets," he murmured. "And in my world, secrets can either save you or bury you alive." He turned away, walking back toward the window. "You may leave." Elena stood, legs trembling. She wanted to run, but her voice betrayed herself. "Why are you keeping me here?" Damien looked over his shoulder, one corner of his mouth lifting in something that wasn't quite a smile. "Because, Elena, I'm not sure if you're my threat or my answer." That night, he couldn't stay. He knew, maybe not every, but enough to start pulling at threads. She went to the servants' quarters, sat on the edge of her narrow bed, and opened the small box hidden under the mattress. Inside was the old photograph, the one thing she had brought from her real life. 3 people in the picture, her, a man in a doctor's coat, and another figure half from the frame. The man in the middle, Dr. Anton, had been her mentor. Now he was a monster she was running. He had been behind the organ smuggling raid, the one she'd accidentally uncovered. Agent arrived with a bullet and note. He had confronted his mom. Hours later, he had been shot. And the last thing she saw before losing consciousness was a pale ring engraved with a serpent eating his own tail. The next day brought worse news. Lucia pulled her aside in the kitchen, whispering nervously, "Someone called the mansion this morning. Asked if a woman named Clara Vance works here." Elena's heart stopped. She tried to smile it off. "That name means nothing to me." But Lucia didn't look convinced. announced, "Be careful, ragazza. In this house, names can get you killed." That evening, Damien returned to the mansion earlier than usual. He was quiet, quieter than normal, but his mood filled the entire space. Guards avoided eye contact. Elena was arranging fresh towels near the staircase when his voice cut through the silence. "Elena," she turned slowly. He stood a few steps above her, looking down, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a cigarette that he hadn't lit. "Come with me," he said. She hesitated. "Sir, don't make me repeat myself." He led her to the indoor garden, a glass atrium glowing faintly under the moonlight. The air smelled of rain and jasmine. She stopped near the fountain, confused. "Why did you bring me here?" He studied her for a moment and said something that chilled her to the bone. "Someone called asking about a woman named Clara Vance." Her pulse spiked. I don't know that name." Damien exhaled smoke, his eyes never leaving hers. "You just lied again." Her lips trembled. "Why are you doing this?" "Because," he said quietly, stepping closer until their breath mingled. "I don't like being lied to, and because something about you doesn't fit." He brushed his thumb near her wrist where her pulse raced like a trapped bird. "You move like someone trained. You look at exits before you enter a room. And when I bled, you didn't hesitate. You knew exactly what to do." Elena's throat tightened. "You're imagining things." He shook his head slightly. "No, I imagine nothing. I see everything." The silence stretched between them until it became unbearable. Then softly, almost to himself, he said, "5 years ago, someone killed my fiancé. The case disappeared. Witnesses vanished. The only clue was a nurse who went missing that same night. A woman who looked a lot like you." Elena felt the world tilt. "That's not possible." He stepped closer, voice low, dangerous. "Tell me, Elena, or Clara, what exactly did you run from?" She backed away, shaking her head. "You wouldn't believe me. Try me." Her voice cracked. "I saw people cut open alive for money. I saw doctors sell hearts like jewelry. And when I tried to stop them, they shot me and left me to die." For the first time, Damien's mask cracked. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, disbelief, rage. "Who?" he demanded. She hesitated. "A man named Anton Hale." The name hit him like a bullet. He turned away sharply, jaw tightening. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of death. "Hale was the man who ordered the hit on my fiancé." Elena's breath caught. Then maybe fate isn't cruel," Damien said, finally facing her again. "Maybe it's precise." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Inside, they stood inches apart, two survivors of the same nightmare, unaware that the past they shared was about to come crashing through the door again. Because even as they spoke, a black car stopped outside the mansion gates, and the man who stepped out, wearing a silver ring shaped like a serpent, smiled coldly. Dr. Anton Hale had found her. The night bled into the mansion like ink. Thunder cracked above the hills, lightning illuminating the wet stone walls for fleeting seconds, like the pulse of something alive. Elena, Clara now, no more masks, sat on the edge of her bed, trembling. The truth was out, or almost. Damien knew her name, and now, the man who had hunted her for years had found her again. She could feel it, that crawling sense of danger that once haunted the hospital corridors. Downstairs, Damien stood in the corridor with Marco and Silvio, both waiting for orders. His knuckles were pale against the glass of whiskey in his hand. "Double the guards," he said quietly. "No one comes near her without my permission." Marco frowned. "Boss, who is she?" Damien didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the rain outside, dark, unreadable. "She's the reason someone's going to die tonight." The mansion fell into silence again, the kind that hurt to breathe in. Clara paced her small room, replaying every moment from that day. The way he had looked at her, with suspicion, yes, but something else too. Something dangerous and magnetic. He could have thrown her out, handed her over, but he hadn't. Why? Maybe because he saw himself in her. The same ruin, the same rage. She turned toward the window, the lightning flashing across her face. That's when she saw it. A figure at the gate, still, watching, and though it was too far to see his face, she knew. Anton Hale had come for her. She ran, barefoot down the hall, her voice catching in her her throat. Damien! He was already there, emerging from the shadows like a storm given shape. What happened? Her breath shook. He's here. Hale, at the gates. For a moment, something raw flickered behind his eyes. Not fear, not surprise, something personal. He signaled to his men, his voice cold, deadly calm. Seal the entrances. No one leaves. No one comes in. Then to her, stay behind me. She shook her head. You don't understand. He won't stop. He killed everyone who knew. Damien cut her off, stepping closer until his breath brushed her cheek. And now he's walked into my world. Minutes later, the mansion lights cut out. Total darkness. The storm roared outside, and with it came the first shot. Glass shattered. A scream. One of the guards. Then another gunshot. Damien grabbed her wrist. Move! They ran through the corridors as the sound of bullets echoed in the distance. His grip was iron, protective, possessive, terrifying. He led her to the basement into a hidden steel-lined room. Inside, monitors flickered, showing camera feeds of the property. On one screen, Hale stood near the fountain, umbrella in hand, calm as ever. He looked older, but that same cold smile still curved his lips. Hello, Rossi. His voice came through the intercom bead, deep and mocking. I believe you have something of mine. Damien's jaw flexed. You mean the woman you shot? Ah, Hale chuckled. So she told you. Good. Saves me the trouble. Clara trembled behind Damien, her fingers digging into the fabric of his sleeve. Hale continued. She's a liability, Damien. She saw things that would burn nations. But what you don't know, his smile sharpened, is that she was there the night your fiancé died. Clara's world tilted. No, she whispered. He's lying. Damien's gaze flicked to her. Unreadable. What does he mean? I don't know, she cried. I swear. But Hale was still talking, his voice like poison. The nurse who disappeared that night wasn't just a witness. She was part of the cover-up. She helped the man who pulled the trigger escape. Enough, Damien growled, slamming the intercom switch off. But the damage was done. The air between them cracked like glass. He turned to her slowly. His face was calm, too calm. Tell me the truth, he said. Her breath caught. I didn't, Damien. I wasn't there for her. I was trying to stop it. I didn't even know who your fiancé was. His eyes were empty, but his voice trembled at the edges. Her name was Valeria. They took her because she discovered Hale's operation. The night she died, a nurse was seen with the shooters. I swear it wasn't me, Clara's voice broke. They used my ID. They made it look like I ran away. He stepped closer, his breath uneven now, torn between rage and belief. Do you know what it feels like? He whispered. To bury someone you loved, not knowing who to blame? She nodded, tears burning her eyes. Yes, because I buried myself that night too. Silence. Then, without warning, he pulled her close. Not gently, not cruelly, just desperately. For the first time, his voice wasn't the voice of a mafia boss. It was the voice of a man who had been bleeding for years. If you're lying, I'll kill you, he said against her hair. If I'm lying, she whispered back, then I deserve it. Outside, another explosion rocked the mansion. Hale's men had breached the outer walls. Damien grabbed a gun from the drawer, chambered around. Stay behind me, he ordered. Clara grabbed his arm. He won't stop. He'll keep coming. Damien, please, let me help. I know how he thinks. He stared at her for a moment, then nodded once. Fine, you stay alive, and you can prove I was wrong about you. They moved together through smoke, broken glass, and shadows. The mansion's hallways became a battlefield, guards exchanging fire with Hale's men. At the main hall, they found Hale, calm, untouched, as though he were walking through a church. Damien, Hale said with a smile, you were always the unpredictable one. You killed my family, Damien said. You took everything. I gave you purpose, Hale corrected, and now I'll take her back. He lifted his gun, but Clara moved faster. She shoved Damien aside and fired first. The shot tore through Hale's shoulder, spinning him backward. His scream was animal, his rage pure, but Hale wasn't done. He raised his weapon again, aimed straight for her heart. The bullet never reached her. Damien stepped in front of her, the shot hitting him in the side. She screamed, catching him before he fell. Damien, no! He gritted his teeth, blood staining his shirt. Finish it. quiet. Her hands shook as she picked up his gun. When she pulled the trigger, there was no hesitation. Hail fell. For a moment, everything was silent, just the sound of rain and her sobbing breath. Then Damien's voice, weak but steady, told you didn't belong here. She pressed her hands to his wound, crying, "Don't you dare die. Not now." His fingers brushed her cheek. "You saved me. You saved me first," she whispered. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that looked foreign on him. "Maybe we saved each other." By dawn, the mansion was burning. Smoke rose into the sky like a ghost. Damien limped out the front door, Clara under his arm, both covered in blood and ash. Behind them, the empire burned, and with it every secret they had ever tried to bury. They didn't look back. At the car, she opened the passenger door, her hands trembling. "Where do we go now?" she asked softly. He slid into the seat beside her, started the engine. His eyes met hers, fierce, tired, alive. "Anywhere," he said, "as long as it's with you." She looked at his bleeding side, then at the flames in the mirror. "We can't outrun this forever." Damien reached over, took her hand, blood on both their palms. "We don't need forever," he said quietly. "We just need now." The mansion was burning. Flames devoured the velvet curtains, the marble walls cracking under the heat. Outside, Damien's men shouted orders. Gunfire echoed, tires screeched, and chaos bled through every hallway. And through it all, Damien held Elena's hand. Blood dripped down his wrist, his blood, but his grip didn't loosen. "Damien, we have to go!" she gasped, her voice trembling as smoke filled the grand hall. His gaze, cold and sharp even through the flickering orange glow, turned to her. There was a cut on her cheek, soot streaking her pale skin, but her eyes, those eyes still burned with defiance. For a second, everything else disappeared. The flames, the betrayal, the gunshots. Only her. "Elena!" His voice cracked slightly, rare for him. "Tell me it wasn't you." She froze. He wasn't asking if she'd betrayed him. He was asking if she'd killed her, his fiancée, the woman whose death had hollowed him out. Elena stepped closer, the smoke curling around her like a veil. Tears welled up, but she didn't look away. "I didn't pull the trigger, Damien, but that night," her voice faltered, "I was there." He didn't move, but his jaw clenched so tight that his cheekbones trembled. Elena swallowed hard, her mind flicking back to the past, to that underground hospital, to the blood on cold tiles, to the sound of a woman's scream before the shot. "I tried to save her," she whispered. "They used her. She saw what she wasn't supposed to. Like me. They killed her to bury it all." Damien's breath hitched. "And you?" "I ran." He stared at her for a long, unbearable moment, the fire's reflection dancing in his eyes. Then slowly, he raised the gun in his hand. Elena didn't flinch. "If I pull this trigger," he said softly, "maybe everything finally ends." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Then do it." Tears streamed down her soot-stained face. "Because if you think I deserve to die for surviving, then I won't run this time." A single gunshot echoed, but not from him. The bullet struck a wall behind them, shattering glass. One of Damien's enemies had made it inside. He turned, fired twice, dropped a man instantly. Then his attention snapped back to Elena, his breathing ragged, eyes wild. "Damn it, Elena!" he barked, grabbing her shoulders. "You think I could kill you after everything?" Her lips trembled. "You wanted to." He pulled her closer, so close their foreheads nearly touched. "I wanted to forget you," he whispered, voice breaking, "but I can't." A loud explosion rocked the mansion. Part of the ceiling collapsed near the staircase. Damien threw himself over her, shielding her from the debris. When he looked up, his arm was bleeding worse, but he didn't care. He pulled her up roughly. "We're leaving. Now." Outside, the courtyard was chaos. Flames reflected off black cars, men shouted orders, and the distant wail of sirens echoed through the night. Elena stumbled as they ran through the smoke, coughing, holding on to him. A car screeched to a stop near the gates. It was one of Damien's, the only one left. He opened the door for her, eyes darting toward the road. "Get in," he ordered. She hesitated, looking back at the mansion, the life she had hidden in, the lies she had lived. "Everything's gone," she whispered. He met her gaze, and for the first time, there was no mask, no command, only the truth. "Then let's disappear with it." She climbed in. He followed, blood soaking through his shirt. The car roared forward, tires slicing through the smoke and firelight. As they sped down the dark road, neither spoke for a long time. The only sound was a distant rumble of the mansion collapsing, the past burning to ashes behind them. Finally, Elena turned her head, her voice trembling. "Where are we going?" Damien's hand tightened on the wheel. "Somewhere they won't find us." She studied his profile, the sharp jawline smeared with soot, the faint tremor in his fingers, the raw exhaustion in his eyes. He looked like a man who had lost everything, but chosen something even more dangerous. "Damien," she whispered, "after tonight, you'll have nothing left." He gave a faint, bitter smile. "Not nothing." His free hand found hers, fingers stained with blood, trembling but steady. "Just you." Tears spilled from her eyes, silently. The city lights blurred into streaks of gold and red outside the window. The world behind them was burning, but in that car, time felt suspended. Elena leaned her head against his shoulder. The same man who had once terrified her, now the only person she could breathe around. He glanced at her, her closed eyes, her scar barely visible through the ripped fabric, and for the first time in years, he let himself feel something other than rage. Not peace, not forgiveness, something darker, something real. Love born from survival. A remote cliffside road outside the city. The dawn sky glowed faintly over the horizon. The car stopped. Damien stepped out, his shirt torn, blood dried across his collarbone. Elena followed, barefoot, the wind whipping her hair. They stood side by side, watching the rising sun. The world below was quiet. The smoke from the mansion was now just a faint smudge against the horizon. "Is this freedom?" she asked softly. He looked at her. Really looked. "No, but it's ours." She smiled faintly, stepping closer. He slipped an arm around her waist, pulling her against him. In the pale morning light, their shadows merged into one. The camera would fade out there. Two broken souls standing over the ashes of everything they once feared. Not saved, not innocent, but alive. Bound not by trust, but by obsession, fire, and love that refused to die. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. And tell me in the comments, what country are you watching from?